Hello, parents. Let me just get this full screen. Here we go. Fabulous. So thank you very much for joining me this way. Apologies for the slight technical issues yesterday where we couldn't get the online version, the streaming version of this to work. So sorry about that, but hopefully this will give you all the information you need. The only slight difference here by doing it this way is that, of course, you won't be able to ask me live questions in the chat. But at the end, I have shared my email address and, of course, Mr. Marlowe's as well. So hopefully this covers most of what you need. But if there are any additional questions after that, then please do feel free to send me an email, copying it to Mr. Marlowe if you need to, and so on as well. But I also know that the parents who were here yesterday to see the actual sort of in-person event, if you like, I know that some of them were taking some fairly copious notes, at least I think that was what they were doing. So it might be that they have additional information that they might share as well. But just to get us started, so the dates, just to confirm, we're looking at the Thursday and Friday. It's the Thursday evening just before half term of the summer term. So it's a little way off, but to hopefully give you some useful information and top tips. And it's just the one night away. The logic of the residentials, and I know for year 3, this is the first school residential that you've been on. And in Key Stage 2, in years 4, 5 and 6, the girls will also have residentials, and they increase by one night each year. So year 3 is one night away, year 4, 2, year 5, 3, and so on. And so the girls get accustomed to having time away. And I'll go into some of the benefits and the thinking behind it in a moment as well. But also important to say that it's very much expected that girls will be there because this is hugely part of our curriculum and a very valuable part of the girls' learning and outside the classroom learning, which is really impactful as well. But I'll talk a little bit about more about that in just a moment. Some of the basics, fundamentals. So where are we actually going? Well, really not far away is the bottom line there. This slightly confusing map with all the different routes and so on, but the fundamentals are, it's basically halfway to Richmond. It's just between the north side of Kingston and Richmond in Ham, effectively. So really not far away at all. We're talking 10, 15 minutes on the bus. And relatively familiar ground as well. There isn't a big long bus journey for the girls to potentially get travel sick and so on for, and reasonably familiar ground too. So not far at all. And Thames Young Mariners, just to make clear as well, is a fully set up centre for schools to have these sorts of experiences. So they have trained staff, both medically, water safety, and very used to dealing with children of all ages, boys and girls of all different ages, at school age, of course. And it has all the facilities there, full dining room, buildings, changing room, showers, all these sorts of things. And we'll have our own allocated changing room with toileting, with showers that the girls will be able to use. That is just for us, just for our school. And again, I'll talk a tiny bit more about that in a moment, but it's a full centre that's set up specifically for this purpose. And it's really, to give you more information about it, it's a 25-acre site, as it says here. And the lake, or the sort of fed by the River Thames, the lake that's there, is Thames Water, but it's private. So it is gated off, no access to the public. And that includes all of the grounds as well. Both the land and water versions are not open to public. It is just for us when we're there, possibly one other school, depending on the bookings. But we'll have our own dedicated centre staff as well, which is really fantastic. And they are really good at what they do, having been there for the last 2 or 3 years or so myself. And just on the water point, a question that was asked by the live team was how sort of clean, safe and so on that is, given that it's Thames water. They do test it on a very regular basis. So that's something they take very seriously. They're testing the water on a very regular basis. If it falls below required standards, then they would let us know. And of course, we will then adjust our activities and not have anything in the water if the water is not up to scratch. So just to go through benefits and things like that. So why is it we do these sorts of things? I'm talking, I guess, residentials in general, setting the scene for your years ahead in year 4, 5 and 6, but then more specifically for this particular one as well. So I think it's very important, and we do it in an academic sense, that the girls have challenge and they're not shielded from that. Of course, there are degrees of challenge. Some girls are more receptive, more open to this, some girls less so. And of course, that's for us as the teachers to judge the relative and correct levels for them. But challenge is essential for them. And I think even a feeling of being slightly out of our comfort zone is also really important. And the girls need to be aware that these sort of moments will happen in life, not just in a classroom, but in life and outside the classroom as well. And even that sort of unfamiliar, I'm not sure what this is, I don't know how to do this. How do the girls actually adjust to that? How do they have a strategy for that? And if they're not exposed to it, well, then they won't. And I think if they're not exposed to it, to the correct level, of course, then actually these sorts of things, the worry might start to build. And of course, worry can then lead to actual anxiety as well. And we had a really fantastic lady come in for our inset actually just after Christmas this term. And she was talking, child psychologist, really lovely lady, really good at talking through these sorts of things, particularly a little bit on anxiety. And she was talking, it really rang true, and I immediately thought of the residential. She was saying that if we have an absence of challenge in the classroom or in school in general, well, then the children will not have a strategy to cope. And I think there is an onus, or there is a sort of realization from adults, and I'm talking adults in general, both parents and teaching staff, that if we constantly ride to the rescue, either to solve these issues for the girls immediately, or even to remove these issues before they're then presented to the girls, then that can lead to a real negative situation where the girls don't know how to cope with it. They don't have a strategy. They will then worry about it, because there's an implied message there as well that we're removing this from you, or we're tackling it for you. Don't worry, we've got this, girls, you know, don't worry about this. And the implied message there is, well, we don't think that you can cope with it. And therefore this may be, in their minds, more of an issue than it actually is. So I think it's really important that there is an element of challenge, the out of comfort zone, the unfamiliar, the top three things there. But of course, as I mentioned before, the right amount of it. And we do adjust that according to the person, the individual, the child that we're looking at too. And I think the residential is all about that. Will there be some feeling of out of our comfort zones and unfamiliar surroundings? Yes, of course there will be. Might that lead to some worries on the day in the events? Yes, of course, but we are there to help. But depending on who it is as well, we are also there to leave them slightly in that moment, bearing in mind that they have teammates around them. They won't be doing these challenges by themselves individually. They'll be in teams of up to 10. And are they using, and the most important thing I think is that, sorry, as I said, it's part of our curriculum, particularly because it comes from our learning powers. Are they using these learning powers to help them? I think the most important resilience here. So that feeling of feeling a touch uncomfortable, know that this is going to be okay. I've had this feeling before in various different ways. And actually, you know what? I think I've got this. I can just take a moment, take a breath, and just see what my strategies are. And that does build the independence as well. Those two are key. But even the rest of the learning powers, I think, are very important. If they're part of a team, are they noticing? There's a noticing learning power there, what their teammates are doing, even what other teams are doing. How are they adjusting to what's been presented to them? Are they collaborating? Are they working well as a team? Are they listening to each other? Are they using the resources? There's another one that are available to them. Are they focusing? Are they planning their strategies? All these sorts of things. And I think it's really super important. So really all of them, the first two are probably the most impactful from the residential, get the most out of. But I genuinely think, and we really see it, that all these learning powers really come to the fore on residentials as well. And I'm sure will be the case in, as I mentioned, year 4, 5 and 6 as well. So that's just a really important point, and that's the sort of fundamentals of the thinking behind residentials too. More specific to our year 3 one, so the Thames Young Mariners one, what do we hope the girls and expect the girls to get out of this? Well, definitely huge amounts of teamwork and problem solving, as I've kind of already alluded to. When they're presented with a challenge, this is what you girls need to do, here's the equipment you need, off you go in your teams and have a think about it. That problem solving, thinking out of the box, working well together, listening to each other, not just sort of being the boss and shouting over the top of everybody. All these sorts of things are hugely important, and it really, really helps them with that. Which gives them that sense of independence and responsibility. I can do this, and I've got this, and our team did this, and it really builds their self-esteem as well, the confidence and self-esteem, and enables them to take on more responsibility too. Actually, that went quite well, or maybe it didn't to start with, but I managed to adjust and kind of have a think, and oh, actually this approach didn't work. So as a team, we kind of discussed it, we had a chat, and okay, well, let's try this instead. And we got there in the end. We don't have to be finding the solution first time out, of course. And that, of course, builds the resilience too. So all these things hugely useful. And I am certain that you will see and hear this in the breathless reports that you get from the girls post the trip, although I'd say slightly extra post the trip. And by that, I mean, the girls will be very tired. So first of my top tips that aren't written down, if you have plans for the Friday evening when the girls come back, or even I would also say the day on Saturday, I would say make them extremely light, if any at all, because the girls will be tired, and they'll be tired in capital letters, because they'll have a very full day, 2 days of activities. Plus, we have bedtime. We do have TPs and all those sorts of things, and I'll come on to those in just a moment. So the girls will sleep, but I think sleep in very relative terms and relative amounts. So there's a huge amount of excitement, a lot of adrenaline. They're in TPs together with their friends, all these sorts of things. So they will sleep, but it's questionable, I think is probably one word, as to how much they will get. So please bear that in mind. And a full schedule, or even much of a schedule on a Friday evening or a Saturday, I think may not be particularly productive. The girls just need time to rest and relax. And then you'll get those breathless reports, and I'm sure you will hear a large amount of all these things we're talking about on this slide coming out too. And I think the last two particularly important, I think, the deepening of friendships. So there's a lot of good friendships in this year group already, but we really see the residential deepening those existing friendships, and particularly important, making new ones too. In their tents, and I'll talk about the makeup of the tents in just a moment, their TPs, they will have their own choice to a degree. We ask the girls to write down 4 or 5 names on a sheet of paper, and our promise is that they'll have at least one of those people in their TP. Of course, we'll try and make it more, but the TPs can have up to 10 in, so there will also be an element of some girls that maybe aren't on their choice list, or aren't girls that they know as well, possibly girls, and we will certainly mix from each class as well. So there is an opportunity there to, yes, of course, deepen existing friendships, but making new ones, which I think is especially important. And really the most important thing of all, which is what this is all about really, is having lots of fun. And I'm sure that there'll be a huge amount of that you'll hear from the girls when they give you their reports on the weekend and tell you all about all the stuff they've been getting up to, and she did this and he did that, oh my goodness me, and Mr. Williams was helping us, but accidentally smashing us in his kayak when we were on the river, and all that kind of stuff. So there's a huge amount of fun that happens as well, of course. Just in terms of staff, so we're looking at certainly the 3 of us, if you like, the 3 main year 3 staff, myself and Mr. Marlowe, and Miss Meany, who looks after year 3 with us as well. We all know the girls extremely well, of course. The other 2 staff members, so there'll be 5 Surbiton staff, if you like, in total, are to be confirmed. Potentially Miss Rockall, Miss Edwards, may or may not be, but whoever it is, there'll be people who know the girls really, really well, and will have worked with them either in previous years or currently, and they know the girls extremely well, and they know what to look out for and who might need what and all those sorts of things too. So 5 Surbiton staff, plus a number of centre staff as well. And the girls will be split into 5 different teams, and that will be their TP where they sleep, but also their activity team as well. And each of those teams have at least one of the centre staff assigned to them as well as having one of us Surbiton staff. They'll have a centre staff too, and potentially more depending on the activity. The water-based raft activity definitely has at least 2 or 3 centre staff, whereas the one that's more kind of guide ropes and just climbing and things like that, they again have additional staff. Whereas the forest walk one, which is a little bit more sort of low and sensible, that tends to just have 1 or 2 centre staff. So it's fully adjusted, and they are, again, as I mentioned, fully trained in terms of first aid, health and safety, and of course in all the equipment that we might be using too. The main activities, the star of the show there really is the raft building. That's the one that is just fantastic, and we tend to do that day 1 so that the girls will get wet then, and I think that's something to bear in mind for their packing as well. They will be getting wet in terms of at least waist high. So some essentials, again, more top tips for you, are shoes that you're happy for them to go into the water, but I think also need to be well done up, so that are laceable or fastenable, not just slip on, because they can either float away, or if there's any kind of bit of sort of silty type sandy mud at the bottom, which there's likely to be a little bit of as they're walking the raft in, it might get sucked off. So anything that is laceable or has some kind of fastening on it, those are the best kind of shoes. Probably an old set of trainers, for instance, that's what I tend to use. Leggings, covered legs, please, for all activities. And again, 1 set of leggings you're happy to get wet. Gym kit, that sort of stuff on top because it dries nice and easily. And personally, I would have 1 wet set of clothes, at least 2 full dry sets of clothes as well. And I would possibly even throw in a 3rd. Why not? It can't hurt to have extra spares. A raincoat is the bottom right hand corner. Girls in their red raincoats very well demonstrate. We of course don't know what the weather's going to be like this far out. So a raincoat is an absolute must, please. It may well be wet. And if it's wet and raining to a reasonable degree, we will carry on with the activities. But of course, the centre staff will make a call. If the weather's particularly bad, there will come the point at which the centre staff say, of course, this is not safe, we're not doing this anymore, and we'll make a contingency plan. They have an indoor centre and so on as well. So those sorts of things really important. But those other, the challenge course, the ropes, the fire lighting, orienteering, shelter building, top left-hand corner photo there, which we then test with effectively a bucket of water, which the girls love, and there's all sorts of screaming and oh my god, all of that sort of stuff going on. So really, really good fun. Sleeping arrangements I've touched on. The girls do have input. They'll be able to write down a list of names, 4 or 5 names, and we will promise one of those, hopefully more, will be in their tent. But the teepees will have around about 8 to 10 girls in. So there will be some girls that maybe aren't on their friendship list in terms of their first choices, but again, encouraging that mixing and that opportunity for new friends as well. The teepees are they're built already for us. So there is absolutely no putting up of tents going on, thank goodness, quite frankly. So they are there ready for us when we arrive, and they have a sort of rubberized mat, if you like, on the floor. So the girls are not sleeping directly on the earth. But a ground mat, really important, really useful, and a decent sleeping bag. I think the ground mat, the self-inflatable ones, are the best for sure, because pumps and all sorts of stuff is just additional things to carry, and they often don't work particularly well. So ones that you can just roll out and they kind of self-inflate, those are brilliant. And a decent sleeping bag, as in quite good for cold weather. The weather the last few times we've been has been one extreme and the other. It was extremely hot one year and then extremely cold last year. But for me personally, I'll take quite a warm sleeping bag, a kind of cold weather sleeping bag, if you like. Much easier to have that slightly unzipped or use it more as a blanket if it's hot, rather than be shivering and cold if the weather is cold. And again, we obviously don't know what that is this far out. So those are a few other top tips for you. While I'm thinking about it, a head torch, really important, rather than a hand torch, because the girls will be using that to go from their teepees to a very nearby sort of quite fancy Portaloo block that they have for us. So just open in the evening, so the girls don't have to go too far when it's dark. But a head torch is really important for them to find their way there. It's not far at all. And also for them to be able to see what they're doing when they're there and so on. And other top tip is a microfiber towel for 2 reasons. Number 1, dries really quickly. And number 2, packs away into pretty much nothing, rather than more regular house or bathroom towels, which are quite big and chunky and much slower to dry. So moving on, well, touching on packing, we will send a full list much closer to the time. But as I've mentioned already, gym kit, really important. 1 set of wet weather clothes, really important. Decent shoes for the wet clothing that can be fastened properly. I would also bring a plastic bag so that the wet clothes can be put in those, because yes, they'll have potentially time to dry out, but they might not be thoroughly dry. So a wet bag that they can just shove the wet stuff in when they then pack is really good as well. And I think this is really important that all clothing is clearly named, ideally with the school as well, but definitely your child's name would be really important. And I think kind of leading on to this point, that actually that you're packing together, and if you're buying new clothing, not only is it named, but your daughter has actually seen it. It's not just bought and put straight in a bag. And we've had incidents before. I'm thinking particularly the ski trip that I go on, where we've had a very nice, fancy, looks pretty much brand new ski jacket to me with no name on, and the girls didn't know whose it was. And it was then, well, we did take it back with us, but it never seemed, I don't think, to find a home. So please, please, please make sure your daughter's packing with you. So she's first of all seen her stuff, and second of all, does understand roughly at least how to pack her bag, because they will be packing their own bags to come home as well. So just really important they understand roughly how to do that. And I think really important as well, valuable items, both in terms of money, but also sentimentally too. Anything that might cause upset if it got dirty, if it got lost, usually albeit temporarily underneath someone's sleeping bag, but that can cause real moments of serious upset. So please, to be avoided. Yes, they could bring a teddy bear, but make it small and sensible size, please. And probably not their most precious, in fact, definitely not their most precious one. So be prepared, or the girls need to be prepared that they might get dirty. They could even potentially get lost. So please bring something that would stand those 2 tests, I guess. And electronic items. So again, all school residentials, whether it's a ski trip, whether it's future residentials, there's no electronic items at all. and includes all those things listed there, particularly the school iPads and phones, even Fitbits, music players, Kindles, all those sorts of things. No, please. Good old-fashioned reading book, a sketch pad, a drawing book, those sorts of things, fantastic, particularly things where maybe some of their friends can join in with them and sketch and draw, or write a little diary or whatever it is together. That'd be fantastic. It's rather nice things for them to be able to do, but nothing electronic. And just to pick up on the point on AirTags, they are actually a genuine safeguarding concern, because they can ping on pretty much anyone's iPhone. And the general consensus is that if something has been put with an AirTag, it's possibly something precious and valuable that is worth someone tracking. So if anyone's looking at it who shouldn't be looking at it, they have that in their mind. So please, absolutely no AirTags. And for the other reason that they are simply not needed either. We are absolutely, I promise, going to where we say we're going and nowhere else. So there's no need for those. The other thing I would suggest as well is that, bearing in mind the girls will have time outside of their TP should they wish to too, in the evenings and in between events, that they can be chatting and being friends and socializing with anyone they like. So anything that they bring that might help sort of more than just them, like the sketch pads, the colouring books, those sorts of things could be really fabulous too, but needs to be packed away in their one bag. We'd say one main bag and a backpack, and that's really all the luggage that they should be carrying. And it must be of a size and weight that they can carry. We can't carry all 40, 41 children's bags, so they must carry their own. They must be able to wheel or carry their own. So please keep it to sensible sizes as well. In terms of homesickness, that can be an issue, of course, but our sort of theory on this, and we've seen it time and time again, is that the girls will be seriously busy. And actually, if they did have opportunity to speak to you, which to be clear, they won't, it often makes things a lot worse. So there is no contact with your daughter while she's away, which again is in line with all school residentials. And I think it's also really important we have that positive framing of the departure, if you like, or when they go away, that we have that lovely, happy, oh my goodness, you're going to have such a fabulous time. Can't wait till you come back because we're going to do this and this together. We're going to have your favorite meal, go to your favorite place, or whatever it might be. Rather than, and I may be being overly dramatic here, the sort of sobbing, crying, oh my goodness, I'm going to miss you type thing, which of course I'm sure you would never do, but it has been done before. And all that results in is a very upset child who's sitting on the coach heading away. And their last impression is that, oh my goodness, my parents are really upset. So please, 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 can we try and avoid that? And I think also really important feeding into homesickness is if please do not make this the first time your daughter stayed away from home. If she hasn't at all, or if she's uncomfortable staying away from home, isn't used to it yet, please can we get some practice in between now and the residential, so during the half terms, during the holidays. And everybody in year 3 is in the same boat, so some swapsies might well be available, that your daughter goes to stay with somebody else and then you have their daughter in return and all those sorts of things. And I think that would just hugely help the girls understand that life is very normal once they come back, and they haven't really missed out on everything, and you're still there, and all those sorts of things. So I think that will really help. And just to confirm, there is no contact at all from when the girls leave to when they come back. Normal pickup time on the Friday. There are no phone calls or contact or anything like that, just to be clear on that too. So dietary and food and so on, there's plenty of food there. There's a full kitchen, full dining room when we're there. So they'll have a full cooked dinner on the first day, and a really fantastic, I remember their breakfast particularly well, really fabulous breakfast on the morning. And then packed lunches at sort of either side of that too. So full food, lots available, second helpings. But an important point is that the school knows, so MAS or the system knows any dietary requirements that your daughter might have, but please particularly bear in mind that we are outside of normal school times here. So if there's anything they need in the evenings or first thing in the morning, that it's really clear, both in terms of diet, but also medically, what those requirements are. And particularly medically, could we please have it super clear, and we really can't give us enough information on this, what she needs, when particularly she needs it, the time of day, even down to the hour if possible, and full details on the dosage. So what is it she needs, how often, when, dosage, all that kind of thing. And if that could be written down and slipped inside, probably a sort of plastic bag, a little Ziploc type plastic bag thing with the medicine, that would be fantastic. And that would be handed in on the morning of our departure. But as it says here too, there will be an online reply sent out for you to give us that additional information a little bit closer to the time. But really super important that's made crystal clear, please, as much as possible. And really, that's kind of the end of me waffling on. You'll be pleased to hear, but here's some just sort of photos from the last few years to give you a little flavour. But you can see that middle photo there, the kind of equipment the girls have. This is them walking their built rafts into the lake. So they have leggings on, they have life vests, they have helmets. The helmets and life vests, of course, provided by the centre. There's staff there, there's boats out there. There's just one boat in shot there, but there's 2 or 3 others, myself included. I'll be out there to help out, possibly accidentally splashing a few of them here and there should they want it. But it's really, really good fun. So that's where the shoes and the wet clothing comes into gear. But there's full kind of climbing assault courses, challenge courses, all these sorts of things, and a bit of woodland orienteering on the top photo there too. So huge amounts of fun. And as I said, that's it for me, really, other than if there's any questions. I was just trying to think in my head now. I should have written this down as to what the questions were yesterday, but I think I've covered most of those. Talked about the sleeping arrangements in terms of the girls getting a choice, and the teepees are built already. That was a question. There is a medical centre there. Oh, changing rooms, I think I mentioned already. There is a changing room there. They'll be allocated to us in the building of the centre. And that has obviously changing facilities, bit of privacy, showers and toilets as well for the girls. And also, in addition to that, much closer to our actual campsite in the field, if you like, or sort of across the grounds, there is a portaloo that's put up very, very close to our teepees. So it's for the evenings, of course, for night. So there's much more convenient there. But I think those are the main ones. But as we've got there, we've got both our email addresses, myself and Mr. Marlowe. Please, if there's any questions at all, anything else you'd like to know, you can possibly check in with the parents who are there in person, or please feel free to pop us an email and we'll return it as soon as we can. That's it from me. Thank you very much.